I will just get started. Well, guys, I think that Martin Bryan doesn't really need any introduction, does he? Here he is on our afternoon library Zoom call, the amazing, incredible illustrator of Horrible Histories. So I'm really excited. Thank you, Martin. I was going to say that he could come along this afternoon, but we can come along and see Martin in his wonderful studio there where he illustrates all his wonderful work. And it'd be really nice for you to have a chat with him and to have a few questions. Just want to start by saying Martin doesn't only do Horrible Histories. I don't know if any of you have come across these two amazing books. I've got the first one and Michelle's holding hers up too. Lesser Spotted Animals. You need to get some copies of these. They're brilliant. I'm sure Martin will speak about these a little bit later. Absolutely fascinating. Really, really weird animals that you've never even heard of. They're actually real. Brilliant pictures and brilliant facts. So make sure you check those out by the end of this. We've got tons of them in the library. So I'm just going to pass over to Dan to start the questions going, because there's nothing more to hear from me, and let's have a chat to Martin and find out what he's been doing and all about him.
Fantastic. Okay, so I think the first question should go to Christina and Maria. So if you unmute and hit Martin with your questions.
Which era is your favourite to illustrate?
Oh, that's a very good question. Which era is the best one to illustrate? Well, this isn't a silly answer, but it's probably the Stone Age, because it's easy. It's fun to do the Tudors and the Georgians, and they've got a wonderful clothing. And the Stuarts had amazing stuff. And what the king wore with his ribbons and bows and tights, all the men in tights with bows in their hair and everything. And the women with the hair up to here. Anyway, it looks great and it's fun to draw, but sometimes it's really tricky. So doing the Stone Age, it was nice for a difference to draw something. Well, they didn't wear much. They just wore a few furs. And so just for once, drawing people in Horrible Histories was a bit easier.
Brilliant.
Okay. Was there another question at all?
Yeah.
Perfect.
When did you decide that you wanted to become an illustrator?
I was probably really young. I mean, do you guys like drawing? Well, I mean, I just loved drawing when I was at school, and I thought, wouldn't it be neat if I could do this?
Oh, we're pausing.
High school, I went to Teachers College to become an art teacher. And then while I was being an art teacher, I thought, actually, no, I want to do more drawing. So I went traveling, and then it's difficult. I think I've always wanted to be an illustrator. I just didn't know how. So to finally answer your question, I probably didn't start until I was about 25. And even then I wasn't, even now, well, probably now I don't call myself an illustrator. I'm a cartoonist. Do any of you guys like cartooning? Because I find that's sometimes the best way to learn how to draw. So I wanted to be a cartoonist, and it's from doing that that I ended up doing sort of, well, Horrible Histories. They're cartoons, really. So yeah, I was a cartoonist first and then an illustrator. So it's a very long answer. I'll try and make them shorter.
No, that's absolutely perfect. Brilliant, Christina and Maria. Thank you very much for your question. If you could just pop the mute button on now. And I think this next question will go to Eloise and Samuel, if that's all right. The hunters, the mighty hunters.
Hi, guys.
Hi. What's your favourite animal fact?
Oh, that's my favourite animal fact. There's too many. Animal fact. I thought you were going to say, what's my favourite animal? And even that's hard enough because there's thousands of them. I think it might be if you've heard of something called a southern right whale dolphin. Have you heard of a southern right whale dolphin? Okay, hang on. Rachel, I have a book.
Ah,
Right. It's one of those animals that when I first saw it, I kind of thought, why wasn't I told? How could something like this be in the world and us not know about it? So this is a southern right whale dolphin. I mean, it's the most extraordinary thing. I mean, that's not a cartoon or anything. That's a fairly accurate drawing. It's just stunning. It's got no dorsal fin, so it looks so sleek. Anyway, so they're not rare. They live in huge pods of up to 1,000 swimming around the ice around the South Pole. But they don't just hang out with their own species. They mix with other species, and they hang out with pilot whales and something called a dusky dolphin. So they're actually mates with different species. And they can even, sometimes they even interbreed with different species, which is totally weird. So it's just, I just really love the idea that animals can be friends with entirely different animals.
Yeah.
perfect. That's a lovely answer. And Samuel, do you have a question for Martin at all?
Yes. Did you do any of the animations for the TV program Horrible Histories?
Ooh.
Samuel, good question. The answer is sort of. I mean, I didn't do any of the animation. I didn't do any of the, physical moving of, the characters like in an animation app or in a computer. But I did do them when we drew these new. Well, they're not new anymore. But when we did these recovers for the Horrible Histories, I drew these guys full figure in pencil. And then what happened was that we got a colorist guy, a wonderful chap called Rob Davis, I think, and he did the coloring. So all this full figure now with these feet and everything, that's all on computer. Because I used to do it in the olden days. I used to do all that in ink, and that's great. But you can't do much to it. But with this figure now on computer, you can pull it apart, you can put it back together again, everything's in layers. So the animators took this figure that I'd done and that Rob had coloured, and they pulled it apart and then put it back together again with all the joints moving. So that's how the animation worked. So I was kind of involved, but I didn't do any of the actual animating. Can I ask you, do you like animating?
Yes, I do.
Yeah, it's cool. I wish I could do more of it.
It's a neat skill, isn't it?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Great. Okay, guys, thank you very much for your questions. Now, Atish, I think it's your turn now. There we go.
Atish, hi.
Hello. So my question is, where did you get all the jokes from which you illustrated in the Horrible History books?
Oh, good question. Some were, well, because I was a cartoonist, I was doing funny books before the Horrible Histories. A long time ago, I did a book called Coping with Parents, and then we did Coping with Teachers and Coping with Boys and Girls, and then we did this book together. This is with a wonderful guy called Peter Corey, and he and I did this book called The Life and Times of Cristobal Colon, which is about Christopher Columbus, and it's full of, and these are really jokey books because I'm a cartoonist. They were full of cartoons. So we did that, and this is full of gags as well. And then the publishers thought, oh, that seems to work. And that's when the idea of the Horrible Histories came along. And Terry Deary, who you know, came along with his book. And his book was going to be like a joke book. And I was already doing jokey cartoons. So I wrote most of the gags for the first few books, for the first good few books, really. And then Terry started to write more gags. So where the ideas come from, I'm not sure. Maybe I've just got a twisted sense of humor. People say, do you write it for your audience? In other words, do I write it for the children? No, I just write what I think makes me laugh, which might mean that I've got the sense of humor of a 7-year-old. I'm not quite sure. Yeah, the ideas probably come from here. The jokes, the gags. Some of them are old things. Terry used to dig up the most ancient jokes that you've ever heard of, and we'd sort of get them in there sometimes. But yeah, it was, by the end, it was like 50-50. Sometimes they were Terry, sometimes they were mine. It's become quite a team over the years. But no, thank you.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, Atish. That was a great question.
Do you have another question?
No.
Okay.
Perfect. All right, brilliant. Thank you, Atish. Well, let's move on then. Let's head over to Noah, who looks like he's peering over a wall. Hey, Noah.
He's still there.
Hello.
Hey.
I've got a question. Hello. I've got a question. Is there a historical event or period that you haven't illustrated yet? If so, what was it?
Ooh. It's probably not so much an era as a place. We've done I don't know if you've seen the specials, the slightly bigger books. They're amongst my favorite of all the horrible histories. We've done a horrible histories of France, Scotland, we've done Ireland and Wales and England as well. We've done the USA, and we were really close to doing a special about Australia. And Australia's got brilliant history. It's mad. And I was quite looking forward to doing some of that. It's like the Georgians and the Victorians, but put over all in Australia. And we had some wonderful rebellions in Australia, really daft things. And you know, Captain Bligh, have you ever heard of him? Mutiny on the Bounty? Well, he was also the governor of Australia for a while. And not only was he kicked off his own ship once upon a time, when he was governor of Australia, he was kicked out of Australia as well. He wasn't very popular. So it was, I think that I would like to draw some of Australia's sad and brutal sometimes history.
Excellent. All right, Noah.
That's good. That's good.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, Noah. Okay, Noah, if you just hit your mute button, I'm just going to ask anybody else. We still have a little bit of time. Does anybody have another question for Martin or something they're keen to find out? Nothing from Atish. But, oh, looks like Samuel's got something he wants to say. So, yeah, unmute Samuel.
Did you create the Think of the Rat in Horrible Histories, or was that what they just put in anyway?
God, you're answering some really good questions. Can everyone hang around for a couple of hours, because this is going to take a while? No, we realized quite quickly that, you know, throughout history there hasn't been a single character. We didn't have like a Shaun the Sheep or a Where's Wally that was in every book, because, you know, Henry's in the Tudors and, you know, James is in the Stuarts, and there wasn't anyone who went throughout history. Apart from in the back of the very first, one of the very first books we did, the Egyptians, was a rat, and there was rats in the tombs, and there were rats in the, you know, on the Viking ships, and there were rats in the, of course, the Black Death. So there's always been rats. So they were always in the books, and they were pretty much the only character we had that took us along, that was always there. So we always had a Rattus, and I drew him more and more, and he became more of a character. But when the TV series happened, because, as you know, the show's 1 minute it's Tudors, 1 minute it's Egyptians, 1 minute it's Aztecs. So they needed a link man. And at one point they were going to use the cartoons, but that even then they needed one character to do it. And of course the rat was the obvious person. So the trouble is they think they invented Rattus. And we think we invented Rattus. And they asked me to do some design work for him. And I sort of came up with something like that, which is the way I've always drawn Rattus. But of course, you can't get a hand up there. The neck is too thin. So they needed a Rattus that you could get someone's hand into and operate sort of the two eyes close together with one eyebrow. So we tried to get them to do something like this, which was our Rattus, but they ended up with their Rattus for obvious reasons. So the two Rattuses are slightly different, but they're in fact the same character. So we might just have a little bit of a fight with the BBC about whose idea it was. It's my idea. That's what it is. This is my idea.
Brilliant question. Okay, something you might not know about Martin is that he's also a film star, I believe. Thinking about the Horrible Histories movie, were you involved in that at all?
I think involved is putting it too strongly. I went on set a few times, and because they like Terry's an actor, so they got him to actually say things. They got me all dressed up, and they stood me in front of a table. I thought I stood in front of a table particularly well. I didn't do anything. I didn't say anything. I didn't look left or right. I just stood in front of the table. And I'm hoping to, if they ever do a second movie, I'm hoping that I can revitalize that role and stand in front of another table quite still. In fact, I don't know if anyone's seen this. It's quite fun. There's a few of them about still, but it's a nice little sort of souvenir book of the movie. It's got all the stars in it and such, and scenes, all the That's such a nice cast. The guys who worked in it were such lovely people. And there we are, just again, proof. In wardrobe for ages, and they made my hair all curly. And that's Terry with that's not his mustache, by the way. And it was great fun. But yes, a movie star is putting it a little strongly.
Did you get an IMDb credit at least, or?
Oh, I haven't looked.
Oh.
We were in the credits, but I don't. So I suppose maybe we are. I don't know. They gave me a name. I was supposed to be some sort of senator, but you wouldn't know for looking. I'm on screen for precisely 1 second.
That's not bad going. All right. Is there anybody else? Just raise your hand, guys, if you have any other burning questions. It looks like Christina and Maria. Yeah, go for it, guys.
What is your favorite book apart from the ones you've illustrated? Like your maybe?
God, it's like asking what your favorite child. Favorite book. I'm at the moment, it changes, because you sort of, today it's, my favorite color is blue, tomorrow might be green. At the moment, I'm rereading My Family and Other Animals. I don't know if you've read that before. It's an absolute classic. It's all about animals. It's about a little boy growing up, an English person who's moved to Corfu, and he's sort of falling in love with the natural world, and he's completely bonked his family. It's a true story. It's a memoir by Gerald Durrell, and that's great. Really loving that. I still like non-fiction. I want to show you something. This is. I love poring over these books. I'm going to disappear and come back.
The suspense.
Right. See this?
Wow.
This is volume 3. There are 9 volumes.
Wow.
This is the fun bit. This is called The Handbook of Mammals of the World, right? If that's a handbook, I am a banana. But in here, this one's about primates, and it's just got every single primate and the subspecies, every species, every subspecies there is. And it's just extraordinary. There are so many wonderful, wonderful things out there. And we only ever see a tiny fraction of them. You know, if I asked everyone today to write down every single mammal species they could think of, you'd probably get to 30 or 40, or maybe if you're really into David Attenborough, maybe you'd get up to 50. But there's 5,000 different mammal species out there. I mean, that's just a page of some of the gibbons.
Wow.
So when you say it's a gibbon, which one? It's, and I do love books like this. I mean, they're fact books. But sort of in here, there are lots and lots of stories, because every single animal's got his own or her own story. Maybe it's a happy story because they're swimming in pods of up to 1,000, hanging out with some other species and having a great time. Or maybe it's not a great story and there's only a few left and their forests are being cut down. So everything's here in a way. But yes, handbook, not so much. But yeah, yes, I'd say my favorite book at the moment is probably The Handbook of Mammals of the World.
So Martin, is that where you get, where you do your research for these wonderful books, all these really, really unusual animals? Do you take them out of those manuals, or how do you research the animals in these? Because they're also incredible.
Well, I've had the idea for a book like this. I mean, all this time, we know about tigers and we know about all the famous animals, lions and polar bears and things. But even from when I was small, when I was your age, guys, I think I knew that there was so much more out there. Maybe coming from Australia, we knew about different sorts of animals. Like everyone's heard of a kangaroo, right? Well, did you know that there are 60 different sorts of kangaroo and wallaby? So once you know that, you begin to think, well, hang on, what about the others? So even as a kid, I started looking at and for different things. I tell you what, guys, when this is over, look up something called a bilby. They use it in Australia as a sort of an Easter bunny. There's an Easter bilby now. It's like a rabbit with a long pointy nose and a long tail. Beautiful. Anyway, so once you've got an interest in it, you start to find animals all over the place. So some of these animals I've known about for years, some of them I've found online, some of them are on television, some of them from books. But once I've got my list of animals that I want to feature, then I've got to do the heavy research.
Right.
So first is sort of just finding something that you fall in love with, and then you dig into it. Which is the same for anything, I suppose. But maybe if you're you love ballet, or you love football, or you love drawing, you get into it, and then you want to sort of investigate more and more and more what you can do, how far you can take it. Sorry,
Absolutely.
I was on a rant then.
No, that's a perfect answer. Just wondering, as the illustrator on Horrible Histories and the illustrator author of The Lesser Spotted Animals, do you have any horrible facts about any of those lesser spotted animals?
Well, the horrible facts are about them becoming extinct. That's the tragedy. That's the horrible bit. I mean, yes, some of them have got disgusting eating habits, and will happily eat other things. There's a wonderful guy here who looks brilliant. If I can find him quickly. Check. Can't. There we go. There's two, a forest buffalo and the Red River hog. The hog is the little one. And he's just, what a face. Look at that, those fabulous ears. I've grouped these guys together because they live in a similar part of Africa, and they have the world's best ears. And he's ever so sweet, and he's got this fabulous face. But he's a pig. So they do piggy things, and what they often do, because where they live, elephants also live. So what they'll do is they'll follow the elephants, and when the elephants poo, they'll come along and stick their noses in the elephant poo and sort of rummage around, because there's usually some undigested nuts and berries amongst the elephant poo that the Red River hogs quite like. So yes, that's fairly disgusting.
That certainly is. I'm lost for words now. Okay,
Yes.
brilliant.
Martin,
It's
Okay.
amazing. This is non-fiction. Non-fiction has the best stories. I tell you, you can't make it up.
Martin, can I just ask you, because we're coming towards the end of our call, and I know that at the beginning we asked some of our friends if they like drawing. Do you have any particular top tips for any of these guys or anyone else that reads along to the books, as if you wanted to start drawing, what would be your top tips for illustrating?
Right. It sounds sort of too simple, but have fun. Because if you have fun doing something, you're going to do it more often. That makes sense. If you love football, if you love playing football, of course, you'll do it all the time because you love it. And if you do it all the time, what happens? You get better at it. If you love playing the violin or the piano or the flute or the trumpet, if you do that every day after school, then you get better at it. That's just how it works. It's the same with languages or cooking or dance, music, sport. You do it a lot, you get better. And it's exactly the same for drawing. People seem to think that I was born able to draw. I was somehow magicked into the world of drawing. When I was, half your size, I just loved doodling. It wasn't good. It was just like all little kids love drawing. But I loved it, so I did it a lot. And then that sort of feeds back on itself. And people go, oh, that's good. So you do it some more. And then you start drawing a lot. And then because you're practicing, it doesn't feel like practice, but you're practicing and you get better at it. And then people say, oh, well, that's really good. And then then people give you pens and paper for your birthdays. And they give you, pads and sort of arty stuff. And it all feeds in. Like if you're a mad canoeist, you tend to get all canoey stuff. And it all just starts to snowball. But it all begins with having fun. And there's too many people. I know about you guys. It probably starts when you're a bit older. But a lot of people start saying things like, I can't draw, which is clearly rubbish. I mean, you can draw. Everyone can draw. But what happens is you don't like what you draw. You draw a horse and it doesn't look exactly like a horse. So you go, oh, I can't draw. Well, that's garbage. Because A, drawing horses is really difficult. And B, well, unless you have learnt how to draw a horse, then well, of course you can't draw a horse. I can't play the piano, but I've never learned. So in that respect, I'm going to disappear and come back again.
I wonder if there's
Talk about being prepared. When I was growing up, I had things like this. How to draw books. This one's a cartoon, how to draw cartoons. It's absolutely brilliant. I grew up with my mum's how to draw book from when she was a kid, and that's how good it was. I've still got it in my bookshelf. But this is a really good one. You know the Horrible Science books? Yep, by Nick Arnold. Well, Tony DeSouls is a bit of a mate of mine, but right. How to draw horrible science. It's not just about science. It's basically how to draw. And it starts off with a wobblier circle. If you can draw just, a circle that looks like a triangle or a triangle that looks like a circle. And it takes you through step by step, all sorts of things. It ends up with some pretty sophisticated stuff at the back, but it's all fun. And because of that, you're so busy having fun, you don't even realize that you're getting better at drawing. So that is the key. I mean, I could talk to you about perspective and lighting and the correct pencils to use. But if you're having fun, that is by far the most important thing that you could possibly do. It doesn't matter what your drawings look like. They might look absolutely garbage. It doesn't matter.
Yeah, thanks.
Sorry, that's another rant. So you get me on the TV and start ranting.
Fantastic advice. Just get going and try. That's brilliant. Thank you.
And it applies to adults as well, by the way. So you guys, your folks, don't let your mum and dad say, I can't draw, because that's clearly not true.
What books were you holding up, Noah? You had some horrible history books there. What were you holding up?
I was holding up two of two of the horrible science books.
Oh, okay.
Oh, great. Yeah, I'm a big fan.
Yeah.
And we haven't stopped. Has anyone got these ones? Cracking Castles.
Oh, that's a good one.
Oh, good one.
That's a newish one. And we've done, what was it?
These are all the horrible history books I have.
Wow.
Oh, great. Groovy Greeks. An early one. Lovely.
Oh, ugly bugs.
Yep. Okay.
Terrific.
You can buy more. There's more than that. You've got to buy that's 70. It's not enough.
That's all of them. That's all of them.
No, I didn't see USA. Didn't see France.
That's a fine collection you've got there. No, that's very good. I think we're slowly running out of time, or very quickly running out of time.
Left. Yeah, just a couple of minutes now.
So before we go, if everybody wants to take themselves off mute and just give a big thank you, big round of applause to Martin Brown.
Thank you.
That was excellent. I hope everybody had a really good time. Your questions were absolutely brilliant as well. And before we go, can I ask, are you all doing the summer reading challenge?
Yeah, I am.
Yeah.
Oh, perfect. Well, that's
I'll
just...
clap you now.
Terrific. All right, Jeanette, over to you.
Okay, so as Dan said, that was fabulous questions, absolutely brilliant. And thank you again to Martin. It's really exciting and lovely that you can say to your friends, what did you do Friday afternoon? Did you sit in the sun and bake? No, actually, I spoke to Martin Brown, who is the illustrator of Horrible Histories, and I'm going to discover his new really exciting Lesser Spotted Animal book. So thank you. It's been brilliant, and well done for you guys as well. Keep going on your challenge and everything. I know it's a whole weekend out there, but we've got loads of books online, and it won't be long till the libraries will be open. You can go and get some other books as well. But yeah, thank you, Martin. It's really fascinating. Just talking about how everything is created in the illustration, I really do find it fascinating. And I just wanted to ask one question, if I've got 2 seconds left, is we talk about writer's block, where the author can't write anymore. It doesn't sound like you've ever had illustrator's block.
Oh, yes, I have.
Oh.
Because before you start a drawing, you need the idea of what the drawing is going to be. And without the idea, it's the same thing, whether you write it out or draw it out. You've still got to come up with that first idea, that first gem of something.
Well,
guys, thank you. It's been an absolute privilege to meet you. Have a wonderful summer. And yeah, apart from doing all the wonderful reading, do some drawing as well. Summer drawing challenge.
Okay, thanks guys.
Bye.
Have a good
See you
weekend.
later. Thank you, everybody.
Bye.
Take care.
Bye.